Welcome to Okashun channel. Today's video is a synopsis of your name. Please watch it until the end. Mitsuha is a high school girl who lives in Itomori town, deep in the mountains of Gifu Prefecture, where there are no bookstores or stylish cafes. While working as a shrine maiden at her family's Miyanaga shrine, she yearns for the big city of Tokyo. One morning, when she wakes up, her grandmother and her sister Yatsuba tell her that she is normal today, but she has no idea what they are talking about. When she opens the notebook, she finds the words "Who are you?" That night, she and Yatsuba performed the ritual of Kuchikamasake in the form of a shrine maiden. When her classmates saw the embarrassing sight of her making the Kuchikamasake, Mitsuha wished to be a boy in Tokyo in her next life. One morning, Mitsuha woke up in an unfamiliar place. Upset, she looked at herself in the mirror and saw that she was a strange high school boy. Thinking she was dreaming, she was swept away by the all-too-real reality and arrived at the high school he attended. It was the life in Tokyo that Mitsuha had always dreamed of. At the invitation of her friend, she goes to a fashionable cafe to talk, and at night she goes to his part-time job to have an exciting time. At the same time, Taki, a high school boy who is supposed to be living in Tokyo, also wakes up in an unfamiliar place. He wakes up in a strange room, with an unfamiliar voice and two breasts on his body. His sister, Yatsuba, catches him touching her breasts and suddenly opens the room. Since then, Taki, who lives in the city, and Mitsuha, who lives in the country, have frequently switched their bodies. The timing of the swapping was decidedly after they went to bed, and the frequency was about 2 to 3 times a week. As they began to realize that this was not a dream, but a reality, they tried to maintain their interchangeable lives by placing restrictions on each other's activities. Although they knew each other's name and appearance, they never met, and gradually began to enjoy their life together. One morning, Taki's phone rings. It was a message from a senior at his part-time job, and it was a date Mitsuha was supposed to have that day. The day ended and the date didn't turn out so well. Taki, who had been thinking about Mitsuha for a long time, tried calling her number on her phone, but it didn't work. Meanwhile, Mitsuha, curious about the outcome of her date, takes a day off from school and heads to Tokyo. She is able to meet Taki, but he doesn't seem to know anything about her. When they part, Mitsuha gives Taki the braided cord that she was wearing in her hair and leaves. After that day, the phenomenon of the two people switching places ceased. When the switching phenomenon disappears, curious about Mitsuha, Taki draws a picture of the scene he saw when he was in Mitsuha's body and heads to the station with his two friends to look for her. The three of them search for her in Hida, Gifu Prefecture, using Taki's drawing as a clue, but they are unable to find her. When the sun goes down, they go to a ramen shop and the owner tells them that the landscape Taki drew is at Amoricho. It was a town where no one lived anymore. 3 years ago, a piece of comet Tiamat had fallen and destroyed the entire town. Upon learning the shocking truth, the three of them went to the library to look up materials related to the disaster. They found Mitsuha's name among the more than 500 victims of the accident. She had died 3 years ago. The next morning, Taki went to the shrine he had visited in Mitsuha's body. He thought that if he drank the Kuchikamasake again, he would be able to see Mitsuha again. However, when he tried to stand up, he slipped and fainted. When he wakes up, he finds himself in Mitsuha's room, a familiar place. Taki has switched bodies with her again. When he checks the date, he finds that tonight is the day of the accident in 2013 when comet Tiamat fell. Taki calls out to the people of the town to run away to save them, but no one listens. So Taki and his friends blow up the power plant and try to evacuate the people. However, the plan fails and the time for the collision of comet Tiamat is approaching. At the same time, Mitsuha also wakes up in Taki's body. She wakes up at the shrine and without knowing why, she and Taki see the town of Itomori 3 years later and realize that she died that day. Then, out of nowhere, she hears his voice. Mitsuha's voice also reaches Taki, and the two people from different eras stand in the same place. In the twilight hour, when the two eras overlap, they are able to recognize each other's figures. Confirming each other's existence in a short time, Taki entrusts his feelings to Mitsuha. In order not to forget each other's names, Taki began to write his name on her hand and Mitsuha on his, and that was the end of the twilight hour. Mitsuha returned to her own body and, following Taki's wishes, hurried to evacuate the people of Itomori town. However, on her way to her father, who is the mayor of the town, she stumbles and falls, and at that time she can no longer remember the name of the man Taki she met in her dream. However, Mitsuha didn't give up. She knew that his name was written on the hand and that he must be there. But there was no name written on the hand, just one word, love you. She got up and ran again, finally arriving at the town hall, where she found her grandmother and Yotsuba in the mayor's office. Later, the comet Tiamat fell on Itomori town. Itomori town was destroyed. After spending the night on the mountain, Taki woke up. However, he could not even remember why he was there. Even after 5 years had passed since that day, he was still strangely fascinated by a certain accident. It was an accident 8 years ago, when a comet had fallen on a town. Miraculously, just before the comet hit the town, the mayor ordered an evacuation drill, and the residents were spared the destruction of the town. He didn't know what he was looking for and just spent his days looking for a job. One day, Taki, who can't help but feel this way, meets someone on the train. There was a woman on the train across from him, and she had noticed him. They quickly got off the train, looked for each other, found each other, and then asked, "What is your name?" This is where the story ends. The timeline is very difficult to understand and I myself could not understand it just once. Why don't you try watching it again with this in mind? That's it for today's video. If you like this video, please rate it highly and subscribe to my channel.